So I should be on the show today. As I'm filming this, it's Saturday, but I've kind of liked the idea of the travel log cold opens. Renee's up there somewhere. I came down a little farther here what's this place called? The Grand Canyon. We're here at the Grand Canyon. Hopefully I'll be on the camera here on, what's the podcast called? Only Weird Games. Hopefully I'll be there next.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
So far, so good. I'm still in Arizona, but we're all here together on Only Weird Games. Renee did make it in and out of the Grand Canyon. I made it in and out of the Grand Canyon. Mild sunburn at worst to this point so far, fellas. That's what I'm thankful for today. Is the only real sunburn that I'm dealing with right now is on the back of my massive calves.
I'm glad to know that I'm not the only calf gifted member of this podcast.
Really?
I often tell, I don't know if Nate has anything to say about his calves, but I often tell Jazz that the only part of me that is still like granite wrapped in silk are my calves. And so, Nate, how about you? How are your legs?
They're good. They're above average, I would like to say. They are not as exceptional as Carlos Alcaraz's legs. If you watch him during the French Open yesterday, I mean, his quads look more robotic than human, which is obviously why he's very good at tennis. But no, like as someone who ran cross country, soccer, track and field, baseball, mostly as a pinch runner, yes, I have exceptional above average legs. They're still functional. Also, fellas, I don't know if this goes the same for you, but no major knee injuries, no major injuries in the lower half. So it's what has kept me somewhat athletic, in my late stage of life at the wonderful age of 36.
I can confirm. What are you going to live to be 42? Like, hey, as I enter the back stretch.
Yeah, I mean, look,
late 30s.
Mortality is all around me. It's Stan Wawrinka playing Andy Murray and getting emotional about the end of essentially their careers. It's Novak Djokovic watching Rafael Nadal and being like, I can't watch this third set. I got to get the hell out of here. This is too grim. By the way, Rafael Nadal lost in the first round of the French Open. If you're wondering, it is a tragic loss. He's won the tournament 14 times. They gave him an alleged domestic abuser to be his first round opponent, and he lost to Alexander Zverev. Again, alleged abuser. Hey, whose trial starts on Friday in Germany. So look, yeah, there's
a lot going on in tennis, huh?
That's a lot going on, but yeah, Novak Djokovic being like, I'm 36 and I'm seeing what my life is gonna be in the next 12 to 18 months. I gotta get the hell up out of here. Even though he did win today in the first round. So look, mortality is all around me because I am in this same gentleman's age class, and I am not obviously a professional, but man, it gets sad at the end. So I don't know how much my legs have left in me, but I do still have quality calves, lower body.
I can vouch for listeners who are wondering about the important issues, having played in a game of very high level 3-on-3.
Very high level.
With Josh.
Extremely high level.
In
I mean, NBA Finals quality
at 10:30 at night with the most patient neighbors in the world, apparently, not minding. I can confirm let's roll things back a bit to late 1990s, early 2000s slang.
Yeah.
Nate's got ups. He's got ups. He can jump significantly higher than you would think.
The burst.
And he was playing with myself and Josh and Rudy and a number of other people, and could jump higher than all of us.
I mean, goodness, I didn't know Jordan Foote was going to get such a stray. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Jordan. On behalf of Only Weird Games, that was not intentional.
look, you guys know me. You've known me for years now. The fact that I remember either of your names is a testament to your insistence on staying in my life. Like I teach the youth group on Sunday mornings, and I literally had to say to a kid, like, hey, because I was asking each of them to do a thing, right? I was like, okay, each of you needs to do it. And I had just gone through it with someone else, and I pointed at him and said, hey, I'm really sorry. I should know your name by now. And that's how I referred to him. And everyone laughed, hopefully at me and not him, either that or I just chased away another youth from the church, which is great.
Follow up for you.
Oh, good.
What's his name?
He's a minor. I do remember his name though.
Is first name unacceptable? You
Jeb.
know
Jeb,
Okay.
which I
How
attend
could you forget someone named
Okay.
Jeb?
I attend a Baptist church. It's more amazing that my name isn't Jeb.
It's in fairness, it is hard to remember Jeb and Jed and Jebediah and Jebediah. Like, there's a lot of I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. When you got that family that walks in with 10 kids dressed the same, you're like, man, I guarantee you every one of those kids' first name is biblical and starts with the same letter.
Same
And
letter,
absolutely.
Yeah. Is
I would bet my
Jebediah?
life on it.
Is he there? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No.
What about is there a lot of Matthews in the congregation? So many.
That's what you should have done, Seth. Is you just should have
So
been
many
like, hey,
Matthews.
Matthew, can you go take care of that? And then six
And,
kids
like,
would have gotten
six
up.
people.
Sheer-
Yeah, like sure.
The sheer volume of 15-year-olds I know that are testing at a college level and also know how to hunt down and trap any sort of animal on earth is, I mean, the limit does not exist. That's
Right.
what happens.
Have any of them talked to girls yet?
Yeah. Look, I mean, and everyone's got their blind spots. And that's I'm like one of the worldly ones at my church. Everyone's like, "Man, we're a little worried about Seth and Jazz." I mean, they're a little worldly, and I'm like, "What?" Like,
how many Mary Magdalens do you have? How many? Just ballpark it for me.
We have a Mary. we've got a Maggie K.
Has anybody been brave enough to name their kid Judas yet?
No, come on.
Biblical name.
No, Paul is where you want to go. You know,
Yeah.
a little half and half. Paul.
Yeah.
Name him Paul.
Little Paul.
If you want Luke, Luke is more traditional, a little bit more
Jacob.
conservative. Oh, Jacob's
Joshua.
a great name. Jacob's a great name.
I'm a Joshua. My brother is Caleb. Like, this is that, and it was not an
I mean,
accident.
of course,
So like,
yeah,
people
right.
should know.
Wow,
where
Joshua
I'm coming
and
from on
Caleb.
this.
How do you think
Yeah.
I got this name?
Yeah, Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
Yep.
You, sir, come with me.
Tucker wants to know if there's
man,
a
I'm just
Saul
a-
yet.
I'm
Can you at
just
least
a
be born
dude-
Saul before changing it to Paul? Like, there's got to be
Right.
something there.
Right.
Sure, that would be really nice. You could really show people when your life turned around.
Right.
It's like,
Can
I was 17.
and this old guy came through. He wasn't really old, but he was a man. Came through
Yeah.
and said, "Come follow me." Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nathaniel's version of the Bible in essence. Me? I'm just a guy, like literally, like I'm just a dude. I'm one of the 12. Like I'm there, but I really wasn't like doing much. You know, I'm just
I literally misunderstood everything that dude said for 2 years.
Yeah, just a background
fact that
character, you know. Yeah. But I was one of the 12. Shout out, you know. Yeah, I was deep in the cut, like in the Wu-Tang Clan. But like you just saw me in the videos. You didn't really hear me rap. I mean, come on.
Barnabas.
That is Nate in the Bible. He was just like, hey man, I was there. No, they didn't really let me write letters. No, they didn't really let me do that. They didn't really let me.
They would have needed me to. I could. Like, I
could have.
I mean,
but they didn't really. You know, that was Luke's kind of thing. You know,
man,
Matthew
yeah.
had a thing.
12 man.
You know, look. Like hey, I'm not saying I was Memphis Bleak, but like, I relate to Memphis Bleak. If I'm being serious, if I'm being honest, you know. So there you go.
Thessalonica wouldn't even take letters from me. I tried. They literally just sent it back saying we're good, actually.
Well, listen. On that note, there are a few topics that Methuselah here has written about recently that I'd like to go ahead and crack into.
Moses Malone. Somebody give him a shout out. Come on now. I mean, but yeah, I haven't met a Moses in like 10 years, guys. No lie.
Yeah, I don't think we're making a lot of new Moseses.
No. I can't believe I compared Nathan in the Bible to Memphis Bleak.
That was good.
I definitely can believe that.
I mean, that's in the crew.
It's like you going, I can't believe I named 6 straight tennis players in a row to start the show tonight. No, Nate, y'all can't. Everybody else is, no one else is surprised by that.
Shout out to Danielle Collins. Shout out. She's amazing. Yes, go ahead.
I'm glad that we arrived here. This felt like the appropriate first 10 minutes because listen, folks, either we talk about straight nonsense for the first 10 minutes or it's about whatever ridiculous thing a member of the Kansas City Chiefs did between the last 2 episodes of the show. And frankly, we're caught up enough, I think, on that front. So you got tennis, sunburn, and biblical names to start today's show. And then we can actually answer a question that you guys started asking a week ago today. And I feel like we actually get to kind of pay off on this topic as the offseason rolls on and there's some little things here and there. But Seth, you wrote a couple of pieces in the Chief in the North newsletter. You guys talked about it with Tucker when I was on a train last week. And then we touched on the defensive side on Thursday about the 2 sides of the Chiefs roster and kind of this idea that I think I had said this at some point during the offseason. I think the Chiefs roster right now is better than it was at this time last year. And so then, Seth, you took the deeper dive in, look at both sides of the ball, at different position groups and everything. We talked about both sides of the ball, but it was at like the hour and 15-minute mark on Thursday that I was still trying to get a verdict. And it was honestly a total waste of my own energy to figure out where do we actually land there? Because I think, again, mentioning on Thursday, the defense lost some pieces. Losing L'Jarius Sneed's a big deal. More on that later. But on the offensive side, the wide receiver group is in a much better place, independent of what ends up happening with Rashid Rice by and large. So were the trade-offs that they made this offseason actually good trade-offs? I don't know where we're all going to land on that, but it's a good late May offseason topic that I feel like we've done the legwork on. Where do you guys find yourselves drifting now in terms of comparing these 2 years of roster construction?
I'm waiting for Nate so I can show how much better I've gotten at eye contact, and I'll tell you why. So I was showing Jazz what I thought was a hilarious clip of us doing something. I can't remember what. It was,
I could tell in the expression on your face that my very serious segue was about to be squandered, and I should have just bailed as soon as I saw that mischievous little stare off into the distance. You're talking to
that's the thing. I'm trying so hard. So I was showing Jazz. I don't remember what it was. It's something I think Nate did that made me laugh really hard at the last episode. And it was Nate just baiting me into just going off the deep end. And I thought it was hilarious. And as like the lead up, it was like a minute beforehand it had started. And I was trying to find where we were and stuff. So she's watching the show with me, and Jazz loves me, but, she doesn't feel it necessary to watch everything that I do. And she's watching, and after like a minute, she's like, do you ever look at the other two or the camera? And I was like, whoa.
Great question.
She was like, she accused me. She's like, you look like you're frozen because you're just staring into. I was like, well, no, I'm reading. She's like, shouldn't you be paying attention? And I was like, have you been talking to Josh?
Yeah, it sounds like she and I have been sharing Google Doc notes.
Yeah. So anyway, I want Nate to go first on his. No, you want me to go first because
I don't care.
Nate.
No, look, I mean,
you can go first,
whatever.
I'm
trade-offs.
I'm doing some reporting right now, so go ahead.
Whoa! Oh man, that gives me anxiety.
Oh,
My
no.
phone. I'm kind of on the hot spot. My phone is behind my head in this window here.
It's not serious reporting. It's just reporting.
I wasn't aware that war crimes were a thing you could be arrested for in 2024. That's next on the Chiefs offseason bingo cards. Violating the Geneva Convention. Anyway, although Andy Reid's training camps have often been said to be close. So here's the thing. I really like what you talk about, the trade-off, right? You've got L'Jarius Sneed, who's the biggest example. They could have paid L'Jarius Sneed. They could have. But they would have basically locked their roster into place. They actually could have paid L'Jarius Sneed and brought on Hollywood Brown, maybe. Would have been tough. They could have maybe done it. But you're locking in your defensive roster into place and locking in your offensive roster into place for the next 2 years. That's what you do, especially if you're paying Chris Jones, which they made very clear. They made the Chiefs. It's so interesting, after years of us really wondering, do the Chiefs view Chris Jones as a foundational guy? Last year and this year, they answered definitively, yep. He is. It's the big five. It's Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. That's this era. So they locked that in.
I'm sorry. I think you forgot someone. Name those guys again.
Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo,
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce,
yes,
Chris Jones,
and you're missing someone. And you're missing someone. Stop it.
Derek Nottie?
Nope. You're missing
Blake
somebody.
Bell.
Nope.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Nope. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know if you're watching.
No, I could feel the comments
Of the core six.
McCole Hardman. Thank you, Tucker.
Of the core six, no, Tucker, stop it, okay? Although McCole Hardman, 3-time Super Bowl champion.
3-time champ?
Yeah, Derek Nottie, 3-time Super Bowl champion.
Incredible comment, Kyle Coffey, who says Mark Donovan. Sure, let's
Mark
make it a
Donovan.
sure. Let's make it a core. I'm sorry, let's make it a core 7. Yes, Mark Donovan.
I genuinely don't. I feel like you're teasing me. I genuinely
who generally drafts players and signs them to contracts. Often get a lot of credit for team building.
Oh, Brett Veach.
Thank you.
Yeah,
all right, let's make it a core 8, okay?
None of us even joke to include Clark Hunt, by the way, which is at least kind of funny because now we're talking about core 9. You got a starting lineup.
Core 9. Sure, let's do a core 9.
I think I view them in a certain era. I feel like
Nick Bolton, hilarious. No, he's not in the core 9. He's not in the core 9. Although he did get to go to the Oval Office, which, I mean, what a glow up. What a glow up.
So
it's a core 9. Are you ready for me to say it's a core 9?
Yes. Core 9. At a certain
Josh
point, it's not a core anymore. At a certain point, you're just
James
naming
Winchester,
people.
core 10, 3-time Super Bowl champ.
Guys,
James Winchester.
It's a core 9. It's a core 9.
Okay.
Why don't we call it a band? It's an ensemble. It's a greatest 9 ensemble. Are we ready?
It's like an Ocean's 11 situation.
Kinda. And if you want to include Nick Bolton, then hey, he's like the grease man.
So
we got a grease man. He tackles everybody.
He
tackles everybody. We got a grease man.
They could have paid L'Jarius Sneed, but it would have taken the Nick Bolton extension off the table for a while. And
Absolutely.
I told you this.
Yes, you can't pay Nick Bolton $20 million a year if you're paying L'Jarius Sneed
$17 million. If you're giving L'Jarius Sneed $19, you can't.
If you're giving the 5th best corner in football $20 million, you can't give the 15th best linebacker in football $20 million.
Who you
in the AFC?
In the second round.
Or...
Sorry, Seth. I meant Drew Tranquil. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, Drew. I don't know, Drew. Whoever you had negotiate that deal for you, I could have done better for you, buddy.
No,
but thank you.
Did you guys hold on? Did you guys see the other Chiefs agent news that happened recently?
Of course,
we haven't talked about on this
show. Please tell us, Josh, before I get to the greatest 9. Yes.
Frank Clark hired the Katz brothers.
Is he still a free agent, Josh? Is he still a free agent?
I believe he's still a free agent.
And now we see.
Hey, Josh. Do people get hurt in training camp?
With nothing but respect to Frank Clark.
Do people get hurt in training camp? You need a training camp? We need a training camp guy?
Katz brothers tweet is how I found out that Frank Clark was still pursuing a continued career in the NFL. Like that is actually, I didn't know what his deal was, and then I saw that, and I thought, oh, he's really not serious about playing. That's a joke about the Katz brothers, not Frank Clark. All due respect to Frank Clark, no due respect to the Katz brothers, personally.
I love it. So, here, hang on. So, are we shifting from the 23 versus 24 roster, Nate?
No. I just want to correct you on the core 4 greatest 9. The 9-man lineup. Let's talk about it like we're in baseball season. You know, this is the murderer's row of Chiefs, the Chiefs' most golden era. Here's the 9-man lineup. Are you ready? Are you ready, Seth?
I'm ready.
All right, count it down with me, kids. Clark Hunt, obviously he's the owner. Brett Veach. No, it's not really in order. It's just I can go through the order here in a minute if you want, but let's just go 1 through 9. Yeah. Clark Hunt, obviously the owner. By the way, better than like 2/3 of the owners by just sheer existence.
He's willing to pay his guys, and
he doesn't have a
stay
lust
out of the way
for the camera. Yeah,
and he doesn't
have.
and he
A
doesn't
lust for the camera.
embezzle money from his partners.
Or
Well, at
rip
least if he
hats
does
off
it-
of bar workers or restaurant
Right.
employees,
Yeah.
or whatever.
You know, respectful. You know, just by being respectful, he's better than half his
Yeah.
peers.
Give me an owner who looks for good people and then at least kind of examines the situation and is willing, because otherwise, you know, what ends up happening is you get an owner who like hires one guy that they trust, and then that guy turns out to be horrible. But then that's their only guy. So then that guy keeps a job, you know, for way longer than he should. But enough about how Washington's been run over the last decade.
Right.
And let's instead talk about, then that's just how that works. So, okay, we've got Clark Hunt, Brett Veach, the two, per Nate Taylor, the two most pivotal figures of the Chiefs dynasty.
Oh, Mark Donovan, because I don't know if Andy Reid doesn't get on the plane if Mark Donovan isn't already there. I'm just being honest, people. Mark Donovan had worked with Andy Reid, was already in Kansas City, gave Clark Hunt the alley-oop. Clark Hunt flew to Philadelphia, made sure that man never got on the plane to go to Arizona. Therefore, Mark Donovan business. Have you
He's
seen
on
the
the
Chiefs? They're exploiting everybody for money. Based on Mark Donovan. Hey, he's the team president. That's what he's like. Actually,
That's the job.
That's literally the job. Then it's Andy Reid,
Hit
obviously.
and clean up. Power.
Yep. Then Patrick Mahomes. Now we've gotten to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce,
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jones.
Mm-hmm.
7.
Go ahead, say who you want to say, Seth.
Spags.
Yep. Are we ready for
Okay.
9? Are we ready for 9?
I am. Who's
Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Stop it. 9 is Harrison Butker.
9? Oh yeah.
The best kicker in the league as of
the
today.
best kicker in the league,
Who
and
is
the
also,
guy
who's been a part of all the run from 2017.
And like the
onward.
rest of those guys, never caused any off-field problems or enormous headaches for the entire organization. That's got to
That's
count.
right.
Has
All he does is make
literally-
game-winning field goals. That's all he does.
all he does. No one knows anything else about
all
it.
he does.
So I'm going to get back to the roster this year versus last year, but I will just say, because this is the first of 5 million times you're going to hear this joke this year, one thing about Harrison Butker, he has never, could never, and will never miss a kick wide left. And that's how you know he's a great kicker. So anyway, Harrison Butker, is it 7 years?
Yes,
right?
He's been
So
with the
he's
team
been here
since
for all 3.
2017.
And he
Yeah.
has, and to be fair to him, I mean, like you think about like the 13 seconds, if he doesn't drill a 50-yard-ish field goal at Arrowhead in January, that's incredible.
He made the game-winning field goal in, freezing temperatures against the Cincinnati Bengals in 2022. They don't go to the Super Bowl if he doesn't make that kick as well. After Patrick Mahomes' most heroic run probably in his career, given the circumstances, playing on a bum ankle.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because he went through, when he had the injury, he went through the whole, like, he's missing extra points a lot.
Right.
And, it's kind of like, not doing the easy thing correctly. But even during that time, if it was like a 55-yarder with the game on the line, I'm more confident about this than I am the extra points right now. I remember thinking that during that phase.
Right.
And now it's just, if the Chiefs get into field goal range with the game on the line, I can't remember the last one he missed.
Yeah,
Like,
that would be if he made sure to include a few misses, that would be tyrannical. So it's just he doesn't really like to diversify or have sort of an equitable spray. It's just straight down the middle every time, and all you have to include there is the ball between the uprights.
So look, here's my opinion. I think the offense is better. Here comes a gray hedge, kids. I think the offense is better in 2024. Because I saw it with my own eyes, and obviously 2024 has yet to have the opportunity to prove it. I think the defense is better in 2023 than it is as of right now. But that could potentially change because, you don't have Chris Jones holding out, and we can get further into that side of the roster. But there are some changes. There are some potential for them to have some positive changes, even though they had what you could argue was a historic defense in the modern NFL era.
Absolutely. One thing that's worth noting, like you have to, there's no ability to create a perfect roster in the modern NFL. There's going to be some deficiencies somewhere, barring, if someone's like, well, if you drafted an all-pro at every position for like 3 years in a row, and even then, you know what you'd have? You'd have 21 players. You'd still have some deficiencies somewhere. Crazy, isn't it? That's just how it works in the NFL. I don't know why I always do that voice.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Which comedian does that? Is that Jim Gaffigan that does that voice?
Yes.
For people that disagree with him.
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah.
Brian Regan, right? He does that one too. Anyway, so you're always going to have trade-offs. And your hope is that you've got young guys that can perform, that allow you to replace things cheaply and all that stuff. Chiefs have drafted really well the last few years. The Tyreek Hill trade obviously was a big deal, but what they did with it allowed them to not waste that trade by drafting multiple good to great players. And so that's where you see this influx and why the Chiefs, I saw Nick Wright do a segment on this, and obviously he's a little biased on this stuff, but I don't think he's wrong, that the Chiefs are better positioned to three-peat than basically any team in history has been, because while they lost Snead, one of the linchpins of their defense, They had two other linchpins of their defense last year, and they were able to hang on to both of them. And it's unusual for a defense to only lose one core player and two really important secondary players. Not secondary as in corner or safety, but like Willie Gay Jr. and Mike Edwards, who I suppose is a secondary player.
Yes.
But anyway, you make trade-offs there. And so the idea here is if you can be 150% of what you were on offense last year, and 85-90% of what you were on defense last year, you overall in the modern NFL, where offense is more important than defense, and with a guy like Spags, you can still have a really good defense, maybe not quite an elite one, but still a really good one. And now suddenly your offense goes from to really good again to elite, and it all evens out better. So I think the 24 roster, I do think the defense is definitively worse. It's got potential to not be too much worse. It just depends on what some young guys do. And it's hard to not be overly optimistic on young guys, particularly in the secondary on the Chiefs defense, when we see what they've done over and over. Like, I basically got Jaden Hicks penciled in to like, oh yeah, he's going to be good. It's like, well, why? I don't know. Like, they're always good.
The last time one of those comparable dudes wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Nazi Johnson.
Probably.
I'm just assuming Nazi Johnson pushes for playing time and is a really competent CB4 at worst. I'm just assuming it because I've seen it. Chamari Connor, of course he'll build on a strong rookie season. These things are not given, but because I don't remember which team was, the Niners were too stupid to hire Dave Merritt. Thank you, Dave, for sticking around. Awful decision by the Niners. Like, I mean, very few people have proven more than Dave Merritt has. That's not already a coordinator. So anyway, so you make those trade-offs. Here's the thing I like about the offensive roster. Yes, it's more talented. They've also got more flexibility moving forward than you might think. And that's
the key. That's the key. If you wanted to take the 2024 roster, that is really the key emphasis, I think, in maybe, taking over the tie break. If you want to get to that point, if you're saying there's a straight tie, you have to give it to somebody. I know what you're going to get to, Seth, but like, it's not, and I mean, we talked about this a little bit last year, but it's so much about the next 3 years versus then pushing all in for the chance to three-peat, knowing that you might have, for comparison's sake, knowing you might have a Los Angeles Rams collapse. Like, you do everything to win that year, knowing it's about to get real dark, even if you have the best offensive player in the league, even if you have one of the best receivers in the league in Cooper Kupp, even if you have a great quarterback still kind of in his prime in Matthew Stafford, the rest of the roster just fell apart within minutes of the confetti falling down on them when they became champions.
When injuries didn't help. But yeah, they've maintained a level of flexibility to where that's one reason you notice they drafted a couple of interior offensive linemen this year, as well as a tackle. They know that they're going through another shift in that offensive line. So can you layer that? Can you layer the damage to where you're rolling in one or two new guys at a time? And they've done a great job layering the natural. Like, you remember how vital Kendall Fuller was to the 2019 Super Bowl run?
Yeah,
He was
very much.
Tyrann Mathieu highly valuable part of that. I mean, they've managed to. Now, the secondary is the most obvious place, but I mean, I was just watching because I'm a Chiefs fan, the 2019 Super Bowl mic'd up after the 2019 AFC Championship mic'd up. Man, that's so fun to watch. You forget Mitch Schwartz, cornerstone of the 2019 Super Bowl win, and they have been able to take cornerstone guys and they've layered the losses and been able to move on and find new guys. Rashid Rice, highly important member of that team. And so I love that. And they've got the flexibility moving forward to where they could proceed any number of ways this year and next year. And they're not limited to one or two doors that they have to go through. And so I do think the 2024 roster ends up being approximately equivalent, but I think they're better on the side of the ball that matters more. And they did it while maintaining flexibility moving forward.
Josh, can I tell people what I was watching on my phone? Because it is required of my job. I think it's Alex Schofield who asked what I'm watching.
I assume tennis.
Before we go to break, I'm gonna tell everybody what I'm watching. Then Tucker, I'm gonna ask Seth a question, and then I don't want you to allow him to answer. Are you good with that? Are you good with that, Josh? And then we should just move on. We just move on to the office.
No, this is great. I love getting to kick back and watch one of these.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it occurred to me via a notification on a particular social media app or apps that Rashid Rice posted something. So, of course, I immediately clicked. What I then saw was a short production video of him doing a very nice thing, which was giving people in a certain metropolis, don't know if it's in Kansas City or if it's in Texas, please watch this after our show, not right now, kind of need the views and the clicks, baby. But after the show, you will see Rashid Rice identify himself as double R and then go into giving people of a certain community, again, don't know if it's in Dallas, don't know if it's in Kansas City, free Domino's pizza and free water out of the goodness of his heart, because it's hot out here, and can confirm. Now, Seth, in light of this new information that we have via a short production video of Rashid Rice doing a good deed, is this proof that this man knows he's not going to prison? Or is this proof that he needs to come back from a devastating deficit in order to potentially improve his plea agreement?
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Where else can you find this coverage? I mean, where else can you go for this level of, content?
You know where else you can find great coverage for maybe something entirely different, depending on who you are as a person? At PXG. I can tell you about PXG today, and you may be looking at me going, Josh, what's your golf level experience? Is that something that you've maybe become an expert at? No, it absolutely is not an expertise of mine. But that's why the experts at PXG were so wonderful when I went out there a couple of weeks ago and got fitted for a club. You may have heard about PXG throughout all sorts of collaborations with us here at KCSN. But I went in, I swung the PXG Black Ops driver. We went through that fitting process. And look, maybe you are a high-level golfer who is trying to fine-tune your game. Maybe you are an entry-level golfer who's trying to figure out what your game could look like. I had a blast at PXG going through with all of the tech they had and being able to get all of the advanced analytics on how my swing was changing over the course of the fitting there and what I was working on and trying to, simply and honestly hit the ball clean. Like that, really, I had some work to do. But throughout that fitting at PXG, we were also having the conversation about, hey, here's where maybe my game could evolve after I put some more time into it with this beautiful instrument from PXG that I'm going to have. And so now I know that I'm not only set up for right now, but I'm also set up for the future of me getting better at golf than Kent Swanson, which is basically my only goal at this point. Really just to smite and spite him. It's not even that's where my quality is going to need to be. I just need to beat Kent at things. If you have not checked out PXG yet, go make the time to do it right now, because PXG made me a believer. They'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Just visit pxg.com/onlyweirdgames to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City. That's at 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club and you'll get a dozen golf balls free. That's pxg.com/onlyweirdgames to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/onlyweirdgames. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends June 30th. Other terms and conditions may apply. See store for details. And then tell them that Only Weird Games sent you, and you will be better at that entire process than I was, but you will have a blast doing it just like I did.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why Joshua is a professional broadcaster. I mean, you can't get more clean than that.
It was great. I had a blast. I'm just not very good at golf yet, but I'm going to get
right. I was going to say, I don't know how long it'll take you to hit the ball cleanly as you can cleanly do ad reads, but I want to go and look. Thomas Susser says PXG sounds like another sexual enhancement drug. You get a gas station, and I just want to let you know, Thomas, I see you, and PXG is about golf. It's okay. It's okay. It's.
But hey, listen,
Bo
maybe
Penix?
you get good at golf and that swagger comes back. I don't know.
Josh, would you rather get PXG from a gas station, or would you like to meet Bo Penis?
I would, if I ever see at a gas station a chance to spend $2 to get a multivitamin labeled Bo Penis, I'll buy it. I might not take it, but I'll buy it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Seth, I can see Seth like false starting a little bit. Like he keeps kind of going up to his mic and backing off again and back up. I don't know.
The sheer volume of things that I want to say, but can't, and so won't.
Another amazing touchdown from Bo Penis. I mean, where'd they find this kid in the first round?
Man, I still just. Like
another above the shoulder catch from Huge Ass. I mean, just an incredible tandem. These two have really developed quite nicely over the season, haven't they, Jim?
Well, it was just good to see the boys doing some work, and so my journey to becoming a walking meme. I just Mansa false starting. Seth needs that PXG from the comments. Okay, so
you guys want to go offense or defense first here? Offense or defense? You guys choose your own adventure. Then I'm steering us either one of those two ways.
Offense.
Let's talk about the offense. We touched on it a tiny bit in light of the pressers last week, but the pressers are mostly about other stuff, and you guys are here for it. The deep ball is a featured returning character to this season of Kansas City Chiefs football, as far as I can tell, Seth. How do you think that could look different right now? What about that has piqued your interest?
In season 7 of the Walking Chiefs, every character from season 1 is back. Like they survived a nuclear explosion.
Was total crowd service, bringing Mike Pennell back for another season. Total crowd.
That is a really good reference. Man, why'd they trade for Neil Farrell, man? Okay, we're talking about the offense.
I forgot he was on the team still. Yeah, I'd love to see. He seems huge. I'd like to watch him play football at some point.
It would be great. I bet being that big and strong makes him hard to move, and that probably helps when you're playing nose tackle.
We have no way of knowing.
Well, yeah, we have literally no way of knowing. And if only, thank God they didn't send a draft asset for that guy to only not play him at all.
Let's not forget Keon Coleman is a member of your Tennessee Titans. Hey, man.
All right.
Hey, sometimes transactions just happen.
You mean Keandre Coburn?
Who did I say? I can't even remember.
Keon Coleman.
Keon Coleman.
DeAndre Coleman.
What was his name?
DeAndre Coleman. That is another one where it's like, we're going to trade for this guy. And then what? Nothing.
No. They drafted Keandre Coburn, and he was here for 45 minutes. And Spags
Yeah,
almost
nice.
cried in a press conference, asked about him not being there anymore, and
Yep.
it was very emotional.
And then they
And the
immediately
Chiefs
sent him out,
continue
sent him
just to
away.
never bring him back. I don't
Yep.
Yeah, which there's probably a story there somewhere. Anyway, get Neil on the field, guys. How many nose tackles do you really need? Okay, but we're talking about offense. I apologize, Nate.
I asked if
Josh.
you want to talk about offense or defense.
I know. Okay, this. Well, you should know better. So with the offense, I really don't think it's just lip service. This whole deep ball thing. I'm actually writing about it right now. This would be a really handy time to point people to the Chief of the North newsletter. However, the article's not up yet, so you're just gonna have to read it anyway, even after I say all this. Because, please, I don't really have a good pitch for that. So
We could have started with defense.
with the deep ball, it's more than one thing that's going on when the Chiefs are talking about the ability to throw the ball deep. Because honestly, last year they barely threw the ball intermediate. If you look at some of Mahomes' heat maps for certain games, it's like I'm throwing everything within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage with like 2 shots downfield, neither of which worked. And hopefully a team doesn't figure this out. Hey, it's Christmas Day. Why are the Raiders playing us like this? Well, this is going to be tough. Yeah, Sky Moore's open, but I'm sure as heck not going to throw it to him. And that was basically what happened that day. I summed it up really well. Well, that Wanya Morris, after a pretty strong start, was like, oh man, Max Crosby's a lot better than that last guy I played. Like, wow, this guy's, wow, he's fast. Wow, I'm going to set up for speed. Whoa, he's strong too. Like, this is terrible. Anyway, so the thing with the offense in terms of throwing the deep ball, it's about more than just big plays, although one can argue big plays swing games. We talked about this a little bit in the playoffs last year, but every single playoff game, when I wrote about keys to the game, one of the keys was, can the Chiefs at least realistically threaten the deep portion of the field enough to force teams to play them differently? And that's the big thing, and this is what I'm writing about right now to really kind of get through the entire issue here is you cannot have a completely broke down portion of an offense as an NFL team because it pulls one lever that actually pulls about 300 other levers because it narrows your options and it increases the options for opposing teams. We used to talk about when Tyreek Hill was in town, or even when in 2022, when MVS was playing just well enough to force teams to keep playing these deep shells. So Juju Smith-Schuster and Travis Kelce feasted underneath. But then when you're not realistically threatened that, everyone plays a yard or two closer. The coverages get a little bit more complex because you suddenly don't have to make sure you've got a shell back there. It's like, no, we can try some single high with man on the outside, do a little bump and run cover 3. Like teams would have, can you imagine in the Tyreek Hill era, like at like 2019 through 2022, basically, or 2021, midways?
I do remember it was called the 2020 game where Tyreek Hill had 300 yards on the Tampa Bay
right, yeah, with the
Buccaneers.
Bucs. And you notice the Bucs in the Super Bowl that year, other than like, hey, no one's playing offensive line anymore. They were like, well, we're not doing that again because it doesn't work. But now, like what happened last year, when you have a certain lack of competency doing one thing in your offense, that means defenses don't have to worry about that anymore. Suddenly their options open up. Suddenly, because you only need one guy back there, you can blitz Patrick Mahomes again because you've got enough guys free that you can keep a spy in place. You can do all these other coverages that you couldn't do before. And we saw that last year, and it made life significantly tougher on them. And that's why I really do think a lot of times we make a big deal about quotes during May, because it's the time of year that we can open talking about biblical names for 10 minutes, because not a whole lot that's changed since the last time I got to see your smiling faces. But this actually is a big deal. This is and now I've noticed they're going after guys that they don't consider just deep threats, right? Hollywood Brown wins intermediate. Xavier Worthy, in college at least, he wins intermediate. Rashid Rice, who they drafted last year, is more of like a Juju plus type skill set. Ideally, right? If things work out for him and he doesn't, I'm going to gesture broadly at all the other things. They really want to open up that entire offense because they saw how difficult it made life on Travis Kelce. And that's only going to get harder. And so I don't think this is just lip service. It would not surprise me at all to see a very different, even like Jared Wiley as a draft pick. He's a tight end who can threaten down the field. Not every tight end can do that. Noah Gray can do that, and Travis Kelce still can, of course. So, I mean, there's interesting iterations of four verts that you can start talking about again. Whereas, like last year, if they were like, let's call four verts, you just know Pat would be in the huddle being like, who's the four, coach?
We're gonna motion Isaiah Pacheco to the right side and hope they maybe cover him, because he's fast too. Now, I've never seen him catch a deep ball, but
well, yeah, but you haven't seen that for half the guys the Chiefs had playing receiver last year too.
There's a lot of guys that haven't seen catch a deep ball in at least roughly one season.
You're right, and so it's an interesting shift because they were valuing
Marquez Valdez-Scantling, McCole Hardman, and Isaiah Pacheco. Those are your four verts.
Sure, why not?
In January, yeah, those are your four verts.
So I think you're seeing a genuine shift to say, okay, we need to get back to being able to legitimately threatening that portion of the field, and that just opens up everything. I don't think you'll ever see them, well, they're trying for it this year, trying to get back to the whole Legion of Zoom idea. It was super successful, but that really is it. You can't put yourself in a box that allows defenses to open up on you. You want to remove options for the defense, make them more predictable, and by being able to threaten over the top, you can do that. Mahomes has become the analogy someone gave. Was this Jordan Foot again? Because that would be really funny.
Please, Lord.
It was as though Steph Curry, once teams started just like coming all to 3-point line, suddenly became the most efficient paint scorer in the league. Started finishing like 2001 Allen Iverson, which would have been really cool to see, honestly. But Mahomes learned to win that way in late 2021 and then especially 2022. And then 2023 kind of blew everything up. So they're trying to get back to it to where he can dice you no matter what. Whereas last year he had the ability to do it, but not the help. And then that lack of help started messing with how he was doing his own things. So it's a long road to a short thought, but I don't think this is just a lip service issue because the ability to threaten deep and even intermediate, it just opens up everything else for the offense.
It wasn't quite the Brett Veach totally scream at one unit that fell apart and cut everybody and sign a whole new crop of guys, but the type of players they invested in at that point, Seth, it feels like a very clear direction that I think in and of itself exceeds it just being lip service. But what were you thinking, Nate?
Yeah, and I think honestly to that point, Josh, and again, another reason why you could say maybe the 24 roster is better than the 23 roster with the ability to maybe even push things further in 2025 is they're hoping that one of these two guys pan out to allow you to throw the deep ball, which is either Wanye Morris developing really well in year 2 or Kingsley Suamataia coming in and just sort of, blowing the doors off of what your expectations are for a rookie left tackle taken in the late second round. So, if one of those two guys can do the job and obviously grow, throughout their careers as Mahomes is obviously in the midst of his prime, then yeah, you have a real chance to have the offense really open up because we all know Andy Reid likes to have at least 4, sometimes 5 people out in routes, but you can't necessarily do that. And this was an issue last year too, where it's like, okay, we want to take a deep shot, but we're almost kind of telegraphing it, which is it's really 2 routes and God max protect and like Mahomes use those legs to like maybe get a guy an extra step or 2, which is one of the great things about just how amazing he is. And when I say he, I mean Patrick Mahomes. They kind of, I can't remember. It was more or less a 3-man route if I remember correctly. And this is hopefully where my photo memory can come into play. But it's essentially play action, max protect, hybrid 3-man route. Travis Kelce's like, I'm so wide open. Why isn't the ball near me? And Mahomes is like, no. What if I keep moving to my left so that I can throw the most audacious deep ball and it's just going to somehow get in McColl's hip against 2 defenders because the 49ers are like, he's not really throwing that, right? Travis Kelce's right there. But you don't take those plays unless you know, hey man, our left tackle, we kind of have to help Donovan Smith. We kind of have to show one thing and move the quarterback another way to even have a chance to throw the ball deep versus what I think you're saying, Seth, which is just drop back, heave that thing. because it puts more of it puts more pressure points on the opposing secondary than having to do all this sort of, I won't say smoke stuff or smoke screen kind of things, but there's all this elaborate stuff you have to do before the ball is ever released downfield.
You're having to buy separation.
Yes.
And it takes more time. Which, more time when you've got some exposure at tackle, that's a big deal. And that's when you've got slow burners on the outside as your runaway guys in MVS and Justin Watson. That's tough. Whereas like Xavier Worthy, the hope is he's a guy that you can snap 1, 2, 3, go.
Right.
And just count on it and make them pay for some of that single high stuff, which, to be fair, MVS did do that a few times last year when it counted most. So, and you could see how it changed the entire offense when it would happen, when they'd hit a big play or two and teams were like, oh crap, this again? It just changes everything.
It's why the Buffalo Bills signed him.
Good luck. Nate, real quick, producing on the fly here. The story that you were alluding to next in the rundown about Spags in the secondary, you're working on that, but that hasn't come out yet, right? Your story on the Spags thing? Or have I been lost to time? Did we lose Nate? Seth, you froze earlier, but I think it was on your end. I'm on a hot spot. And
I just missed you. Sorry. I couldn't. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I got you. We got you.
We can hear you.
Real quick live production question. The topic on the rundown about Spags in the secondary. You're writing that now, but that's not out yet, right? That's not out today.
Right. Yeah.
I have a follow up on the offensive side.
Sure.
That may knock that into Thursday, but I would love to talk about that more after your story comes out. So congratulations, everybody. We made it through 2 topics on today's rundown. But it'll give us more time to talk about the defense on Thursday.
Yeah, for people who are listening via podcast, hopefully by the time you're listening to it, the story will be out effectively Wednesday morning.
Okay, and Seth and I haven't gotten to read it yet, so let's plan on putting that in the Clark Hunt top of the order one hole on Thursday, because you guys I think mentioned this with Tucker filling in. You guys had a question about the offensive line late in that part of the roster breakdown, but we have not talked about Jawaan Taylor almost at all this offseason, and I think I know why. I mean, the Chiefs gave him a ton of money and said, we're paying him a lot of money to be very, very good. The beginning of his season was derailed by nonsense and then an ongoing commitment to nonsense. And I maybe, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I haven't gone back to rewatch him or whatever. Maybe it's because he did improve later in the year and down the playoff stretch, and we were worrying less about alignment and early motion or whatever. So maybe he became a little bit less of a topic. Maybe it's just because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl and you don't complain about the right tackle when you're winning playoff games. But to all of those points you guys make about either Wanye or Kingsley and making sure that Mahomes has time there, where are you guys at on Jawaan Taylor right now? Because if he ran back last year's campaign, we would all be terribly unhappy with that. And I feel like there's a little bit of confidence that that's not going to be what happens in 2024. But I don't know. He is a highly paid, massively important player who had a really hard year last year that we don't talk about. And I don't know why or where you guys are even at on him right now.
You want to go first, Seth, while I look some things up?
I think some of it is the fact that the interior offensive line remains intact and is so good that it provides a certain amount of confidence about the offensive line. There's also the fact that the things that he struggled with for a significant portion of the season, but especially early, of course, aren't purely related to being bad at pass protection. And that's like the one thing that we won't forgive a tackle for, right? Like that's because that's the thing. It's like just watching a guy get blown by over and over and over. That's not really what was happening with him. Like you said, his season got derailed by nonsense early. Then there was, like you said, I like that. There was a strong commitment to the nonsense continuing. And
alternative title of this podcast.
He had a number of I haven't charted his snaps from beginning of the year to later in the year. I am curious about that, what I would find. I know Nick Bosa gave him problems in the Super Bowl. It's kind of like, fair enough. Well, and like that's just going to happen. Well, and then also Bosa gave him problems in the Super Bowl also by playing a really, really disciplined game and taking advantage of Mahomes breaking to the right. and then just going after him. And right tackles can't win there. Like even Mitch Schwartz couldn't win there when that happened. I'm not worried about him. Do I think that there's a concern that the juice isn't going to be worth the squeeze in terms of his contract? Yes. Do I think it was a good sized contract? I mean, it was a genuinely large deal.
Yes.
And it's one that's good for, because people always talk about what they're going to do with him. He's here 2024 and 2025, people.
Right.
Like that is
it would be, you'd be doing some crazy gymnastics to get off of him for 2025.
He would have to be legitimately terrible next year for them to consider, or like, well, you know what? No matter what I said, it wasn't going to be ludicrous enough considering how this offseason has gone. So he would have to do something
great editing live by Seth Keysor.
Yeah. And so
9 felonies and the worst speech you've ever seen. And even then, that's still guaranteed money.
He's still on the roster.
Yeah. And so he was good enough in pass pro situations that I'm comfortable with him. I view him as an upgrade over what they had, but that's a very different question than whether he's worth that amount of money. So I think because it's not viewed as a glaring weak spot on the roster, you don't, or even necessarily a weak spot, it just might not be worth the money that they paid. Right?
Can I ask another version of that?
Yeah.
With the 5 starting offensive line positions, where does he rank in terms of confidence in that football player? Because it's not top
4th.
3. Yeah.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I would say 3 as of right now because he's healthy and Joe Thuney is not.
Ugh. Nate, that's a great point for the worst reason, because that's fair, and I don't like the implication.
And Joe Thuney's older.
Yeah.
And Joe Thuney's, at least he's had the whole offseason, so it's not like he's trying to do it.
If Joe Thuney's 4th, that's also a contract you're afraid of right now.
But that's what happens when you sign someone of significance in free agency, right? That last year gets very tenuous to some degree, even though they push some money back with Joe Thuney. And I just want to remind people, like, Joe Thuney is a robot. I'm sure they can recalibrate him accordingly. But until you see it, and again, we're not even sure if we're going to see Joe Thuney throughout much of training camp, right? And that would be for obvious reasons, precautionary, to give him as much time possible before the run up, obviously, to what, September 5th is when the first game is. Is that right?
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah, September 5th against the Raiders until the first Thursday in September. So you're gonna give him a long runway, but I'm just saying, as of right now, I would actually give Jawaan Taylor 3rd in the confidence ranking right now because he's healthy. He's entering year 2. He still has a chance to, as we're going to talk about, he still has a chance to get better. And he's younger than Joe Thuney, and he is not healthy, or he's not hurt right now, and he's obviously participating in the organized team activities. He'll obviously be there for mandatory minicamp. He'll go through the entire offseason like he did last year, which should help a player, obviously, year 2 into the system. So as difficult as it sounds for me to say that, there's obviously legitimate reasons as to why.
And then number 1 and number 2 on your list are both pending free agents.
Right?
Correct. But I don't.
This is why you've got.
To be
this
fair,
is why you're trying to loop that through in terms of layering it.
To be
That's
fair,
what
one
you
of
see the Chiefs trying to do.
To be fair, one of those guys is not a pending free agent. At worst, he's a franchise tagged player.
Fair enough, I guess. You could tag Creed. You gotta.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to tag him and Nick Bolton, but I mean, fair enough.
It's not as it's not as advantageous as the franchise tag is at some positions, but you potentially could do that. And mostly get away with it the same way they did with Orlando Brown's $16.1 million back in 2022. It would kind of be similar from a percentage portion, even though that number would be lower with the cap, we assume, continuing to rise.
One way to think about it with Taylor, like just as I really try to process it, he is someone that I really think I try to get to off-season film reviews, right, where I do kind of longer running film reviews, like bigger film reviews of individuals. Jawaan Taylor's one that I should probably do. Now I'm going to be in Italy for like 11 days during the doldrums of the offseason. That's going to really cut into those film reviews. I'm pretty sure if I try to do some film reviews while we're in Italy, my wife will hurt me.
Are you watching
I don't
all
know
22?
Yeah, you're doing what? But honey, Jawaan Taylor might.
I'll tell you about an illegal formation. You sitting there on your laptop.
So the one thing I would ask people to think about during the playoffs last year with, do you remember pass protection snaps by Jawaan Taylor?
And largely no.
And that is, to me, okay, we'll see. Down the stretch last year, we saw like Donovan Smith was more of a liability in pass protection during the second half of the season last year.
Correct.
And I'm not sure it was super close. And again, appreciate that Smith was a veteran, stopgap guy, did some good stuff. He was just good enough to not drag the offense down. And that's what they were asking for. But it is it's just something to consider in terms of, why it's not necessarily something that I'm very worried about. But, we'll see. I've just never seen a player. I've never seen an offensive lineman. I've talked to a few people that I really trust with regards to offensive linemen, kind of asking them, like, can you give me a comparison for what happened with Taylor last year? And neither of them had one. They were like, I've never seen anything like that, to where it really was one person getting singled out for a very specific aspect of their game multiple weeks in a row, and then getting singled out in other aspects of the game too, because like holding calls suddenly became even more. It was just, I was like, have you ever seen it? Because I'm a Chiefs fan. Maybe I'm seeing things wrong, but they hadn't seen anything like that. There's no point of reference. I think that's screwed with his head all year. I think you'll see a stronger year from him this year. So, but again, that's not the same question as whether the juice is worth the squeeze, though.
Now, according to Pro Football Focus, not me, just looking up on Pro Football Focus again, what
just Nathaniel,
what you talked about is a certain set of eyes to give you a reference point. Doesn't mean it's the Bible, but it's
nothing could be.
Well, yes, of course, that's why I mentioned it. But of course, it is a reference point
that 30 more minutes with 2 more jokes.
What Pro Football Focus says, as I'm looking up here in their evaluation of him, Jawaan Taylor last year, one of his highest grades overall was the Super Bowl. One of his highest pass protection grade, and it's not saying much, but hey, it was a playoff game, was against the Miami Dolphins when they had who rushing the passer there, Josh? Who do they have rushing the passer?
On the field? He was, right?
Yep.
The ghost of Justin Houston's past.
Hey,
but I forgot Justin Houston was there.
Yeah. But hey, and look, to be fair, who was it? Vic Fangio was like, well, I'm not gonna be here next year. Light him up.
Yeah.
To which he gave more blitzes of Patrick Mahomes than anybody in a playoff game to only get sliced and diced on a frozen field. You know how hard it is to do that, to throw a football down the field multiple times against the blitz in frozen conditions and get absolutely torched. But hey,
especially after your wide receivers have committed to dropping footballs in way balmier spots.
Correct. But hey, that was one of Jawaan Taylor's best pass protection games. The same can be said. He actually had a very good game, according to Pro Football Focus, against the Raiders on Christmas Day. He backed it up with an even better performance, overall his best performance of the season, against Cincinnati when they clinched their playoff spot and won their AFC West divisional crown. So he got better as the season moved along. You can kind of start to see, in terms of pass blocking, you can kind of start to see the dividing line being after the Philadelphia Eagles game in Week 12 as to when he actually started playing a little bit more consistency from a pass blocking standpoint. And wouldn't you know it, penalties started coming down. Right around that time, kids.
The penalties will rain down.
Yeah, so he only had 2 games with multiple penalties after the game at Las Vegas, and that is including the postseason as well. So he was only penalized once, I believe, in the Buffalo and the Baltimore game, but didn't really have issues in terms of the amount of pressure he was giving up in those games. He gave up pressures against the San Francisco 49ers because of what Seth said, but his pass blocking grade was actually pretty good comparison to his teammates, given the responsibilities, given what was asked of him. But he actually did very well in terms of not giving up sacks in the postseason, according to Pro Football Focus, and only allowing Patrick Mahomes to be hit just a couple times based on his responsibilities per their evaluation. So there's a chance, is all I'm saying with this information, with this data, is that you can start to see around the second half of the year into the postseason, he actually played pretty well. And so you hope, obviously the hope is that he'll play even better for the entirety of the 2024 season. But I'm fascinated. I'm really glad you brought him up, Josh, just because he had such a curious case. Yet, he doesn't really want to. I'm sure he doesn't really want to be a major storyline of the 2024 season for all the things we mentioned earlier.
Well, we are well over an hour, and I don't think we have time to get to off-season lessons. Maybe we do that on Thursday when we also talk about with the defense. Nate has that piece coming out soon in The Athletic, and you also can read, as Seth alluded to earlier, in the Chief in the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. It's 2 hours earlier here, and I still got some sunlight that will, potentially burn my skin. So, Nate, why don't you go ahead and get us out of here? I'm gonna enjoy this air conditioning for a few more minutes.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may have heard by now, as of Tuesday night, perhaps if you're hearing this on Wednesday, that the Kansas City Chiefs will make their second annual trip to the White House on Friday. Yours truly, with the grace of God, will hopefully be there in attendance to provide all the reporting and coverage necessary. Now, there has been a topic that I do want to debunk in regards to the Chiefs' potential, or excuse me, their upcoming visit to the White House, seeing President Joseph Biden once again, even though he's from Philadelphia, and he has to congratulate the Chiefs yet again on them being Super Bowl champs. There's been some concern.
He's also trying to go back to back. He probably respects it.
Yeah, obviously. He's probably asking for so how'd you get over the adversity on Christmas Day? Because I don't want to have a Christmas Day in this campaign. I don't really want to. I would like to have a smooth sailing. How would you debate him? Please, someone ask him that question. How do you think the debate's gonna go?
What were you gonna debunk? That was my fault. That one's.
Yeah, that really was your fault. But some people are wondering, hey, is Taylor Swift gonna be at the White House on Friday? This is a legitimate question and concern amongst the population. According to some White House officials, they know that there is a lot of interest about Taylor Swift potentially being at the White House on Friday. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this woman doesn't need your permission. No. This woman doesn't need to tell you she's coming. No. Taylor Swift could come to the White House any day she wants. Okay? We do not have to, and I'm criticizing my peers here, we do not have to put a media spin on this, kids. Sure, Travis Kelce is going to be there. Well, what about Taylor Swift? Guys,
she could be the president if she wanted to be. She just has to say it.
Correct. I'm running for 2020. Uh-oh! Please run. Now, Taylor, how would you debate him? And you could insert either him in the question. How would you debate him? Now look, if Taylor Swift is there, clearly I will let you know. But she ain't got to be there. She can be there whenever she wants. You know where she is right now? Not at the White House, okay? And just because the Chiefs won a little rinky-dink Super Bowl doesn't mean she has to come on by through Washington, D.C. on a freaking summer day in late May. I mean, come on, guys. White House press corps, calm it down. Pull your zippers up. Just calm it down. She not gonna be there, okay? Because she don't have to be there. So I just wanted to debunk everybody. Just take a deep breath, ladies and gentlemen. She ain't got to be there. She was not on the field. She was not coaching. She was not scouting. Okay? She ain't going to be there. That we can prove, obviously. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Who knows?
What might have been
I do wonder if she's been watching any UFL kickers.
Hey, what's the scouting report on this guy?